The battlefield tightens as pressure mounts from every direction. Kale, Lyra, Riven, and Thorn adapt, but their rhythm is no longer entirely their own. Ignis and Alaric observe in silence, as if waiting for something else to emerge. Subscribe to Turmoil Studio. Control is slipping. The lattice did not move. It listened. For the first time, it was no longer reacting to actions. It was reacting to definitions forming inside action itself. Kale felt it immediately. The system is watching interpretation again. Thorn's eyes narrowed. No, it's choosing between interpretations. Nyx exhaled softly. That's worse than watching. Aurelytha remained still, but her wings no longer pulsed in stable rhythm. They shifted slightly out of phase, as if even she could not lock onto a single state of truth. And then, Seraphine stepped forward. The lattice tightened around her presence. Not aggressively, automatically, like a system remembering how to be stable. Across from her, Lysandra stood, but she was no longer alone. Not split, not duplicated. She was distributed. Every possible version of her existence overlapped in the same space without collapsing. Riven muttered, "That still doesn't feel legal." Lyra whispered, "Nothing here feels legal anymore." Lysandra tilted her head slightly. "You are compressing again," Seraphine answered calmly. "You are expanding again." A pause. Then the lattice flinched. Not physically, conceptually, because both statements were true and incompatible. Seraphine raised her hand. A field expanded outward. Not force, not energy, but singularity pressure. The space began to simplify. Interpretations collapsed toward one stable meaning per observation point. Kale's vision sharpened. She's forcing single-thread reality. Thorn nodded. Coherence restoration field. Nyx narrowed her eyes. She's trying to delete ambiguity. Across the field, Lysandra did not resist. She allowed the compression, and in allowing it, she learned it. The lattice flickered, then shifted. Seraphine's field encountered something it could not simplify. Lysandra's existence did not collapse. It redefined what collapse means. Seraphine's eyes narrowed slightly. "You are adapting inside compression," Lysandra replied softly. "I am observing your certainty." Then she moved. Not forward, not backward, but into a state where Seraphine's field had no single definition of impact. The strike did not break the field. It split its interpretation pathways. Seraphine stepped back half a step. Aurelytha's gaze sharpened. "Do not misclassify this interaction." Kale turned slightly. "What is it then?" Aurelytha hesitated. "Mutual definition pressure." That word landed heavily. Because neither was attacking. They were forcing reality to define itself under conflict. Seraphine closed her eyes. For the first time, she stopped compressing immediately. Instead, she stabilized continuity, not singularity. Continuity. "I will not force one truth," she said softly. "I will maintain stable observation flow." The lattice adjusted instantly. Seraphine's presence became smoother, less rigid, more adaptive. Lysandra tilted her head. "You changed your constraint," Seraphine answered. "So did you." And then, they both moved. At the same time, but differently. Seraphine expanded continuity fields. Lysandra expanded possibility branches. The space between them began to fracture into two competing realities. One where interpretation stays stable. One where interpretation remains open. Kyle stepped back instinctively. "They're rewriting the same space differently," Thorn whispered. "Reality is diverging locally." Nyx's voice dropped. "So, which one wins?" Darius answered quietly from behind them. "Neither." A pause. "The system will decide which one survives longer under stress." The lattice responded to that statement. As if acknowledging the rule, Seraphine advanced again. This time slower. Each step reduced variance. Each movement simplified branching outcomes. Lysandra responded by doing the opposite. Each step multiplied outcomes instead of reducing them, and in the overlap reality began to strain. Riven clenched his fist. This feels like it's going to break. Lyra shook her head slightly. It won't break. A pause. It will choose. Seraphine raised her hand. A final compression wave formed. Not attack. Conclusion pressure. You are destabilizing coherence thresholds. Lysandra answered calmly. You are suppressing survival variation. They both paused. Because that was the core conflict. Not good versus evil. Not order versus chaos. But survival through singular truth versus survival through multiple truths. And neither could disprove the other. Seraphine lowered her hand slightly. Then I will restrict variance locally, Lysandra replied. Then I will expand stability thresholds globally. The lattice reacted instantly. Aurelytha's wings flickered sharply. This interaction is escalating beyond classification capacity, Thorn whispered. She's losing interpretive authority. Kale looked up. Aurelytha can't define the fight anymore. Nick smiled faintly. That means the system is already past her. And then Lysandra did something new. She stopped attacking. She observed Seraphine fully, and in that observation, Seraphine felt it. A second version of herself formed. Not physically, conceptually. A version that allowed ambiguity. Seraphine's eyes widened slightly. You are projecting alternative compliance states. Lysandra nodded. I am showing you what you reject. The lattice trembled. Because now, even Seraphine was no longer singular in interpretation. Kale whispered. She's not fighting Seraphine. Pause. She's rewriting what Seraphine could be. Seraphine closed her eyes again. But this time when she opened them, her field changed. Not singularity. Not multiplicity. A third mode. Balance without collapse. Then, I will not remove possibility, she said softly. I will regulate its impact. Lysandra paused. For the first time, the lattice hesitated with her, and in that hesitation, Darius spoke quietly. That's the first stable compromise state. Nyx frowned. Or the first stalemate. Kale looked between them. No. A pause. It's evolution pressure equilibrium. The lattice responded. Not collapsing, not expanding, but stabilizing tension between both forces. Seraphine versus Lysandra. Coherence versus possibility. Neither winning, neither losing. But now, the system had learned something more dangerous than either. Both could exist at once without immediate collapse. And that meant the next evolution would not be a fight. It would be adaptation beyond them both. Aurelytha finally spoke. Low, heavier than before. You are no longer inside doctrinal boundaries. A pause. You are creating them. The lattice pulsed once. Slow, deliberate. And for the first time, it did not ask who would win. It asked, what comes next when neither side can be removed? And somewhere inside that question, the system began to evolve again. But this time, it did not evolve outward. It evolved inward. The lattice dimmed. Not in collapse. Not in shutdown, but in focus compression. As if reality itself had stopped trying to express itself in breadth and started refining depth. Kale felt it in his chest. It's narrowing again. Lyra shook her head slowly. No, it's not narrowing. A pause. It's concentrating. Thorn's eyes flickered rapidly as data-like perception layers stacked across his vision. It's reducing variance noise. Nyx frowned slightly. That usually means stability. A pause. Why does it feel worse? Because stability was no longer the goal. Selection was. Aurelytha did not move. But her presence shifted, as if something inside her authority layer had been overwritten mid-thought. Doctrine boundary conflict detected, she said slowly. A pause. This should not be possible. Seraphine and Lysandra both turned toward her at the same time. Not in reaction, in alignment. For the first time, They were not opposing forces. They were parallel observers of the same system failure. Seraphine spoke first, calm, controlled. Your doctrine assumes singular resolution. Lysandra followed immediately. But the system no longer resolves. Aurelytha's wings tightened slightly, not aggressively, defensively. Doctrine is not assumption, she replied. It is structural law, Thorn whispered. It's defending its own definition. Kale narrowed his eyes. Then what happens when law meets contradiction that doesn't collapse? No one answered, because the lattice had already begun answering instead. A deep pulse moved through the structure, not outward, not inward, but across every possible interpretation layer simultaneously. And then, the system introduced something new. Not a voice, not a projection, not an entity. A rule that had never existed before. Multiple stable doctrines permitted under conditional observation. Silence broke instantly, not with sound, with recognition fracture. Riven stepped back slightly. That's not a rule. A pause. That's a system rewrite. Nick's expression sharpened. No. A quieter tone. That's a system surrendering exclusivity. Lyra whispered. It's allowing multiple truths to exist as law. Thorn shook his head slowly. Not just exist. A pause. Be enforced. The lattice responded immediately, as if confirming it, and reality split not into fragment strive, but into governed layers. One layer where Seraphine's coherence laws held, one layer where Lysandra's multiplicity laws expanded, and a third layer where both were simultaneously valid depending on observation pressure. Kale's breathing slowed. Reality just became modular. Aurelytha stepped forward for the first time, and the lattice did not tighten. It hesitated. That hesitation mattered more than resistance. This is doctrinal fragmentation, she said quietly. Lysandra tilted her head. No. Oh, a pause. This is doctrinal evolution, Seraphine added softly. Or doctrinal competition. Aurelytha's gaze sharpened. For the first time, uncertainty entered her voice layer. Doctrine is not meant to compete. Nyx muttered. Everything competes when it stops collapsing. The lattice pulsed again, and this time, it did something dangerous. It began assigning weight to doctrines. Not equal, not random, but performance-based. Kale frowned. It's evaluating them. Thorn's eyes widened. No, it's stress-testing them. Lyra stepped forward slightly. What does that mean? Aurelytha answered before anyone else could. Her voice lower now, heavier. It means the system no longer believes truth is static. A pause. It believes truth is operational. Silence. That word changed everything. Operational truth. Not what is correct, but what survives. Riven exhaled sharply. So now truth is based on endurance. Nyx nodded slowly. Or adaptability. A pause. Or dominance under pressure. Lysandra took one step forward, and reality adjusted to her motion before she completed it. Seraphine noticed immediately. You are being weighted higher. Lysandra replied calmly. Not higher. A pause. More stable under current conditions. Seraphine narrowed her eyes slightly. That changes dynamically. Exactly, Lysandra said. The lattice pulsed, confirming. Kale felt it now, clearly. This was no longer a fight between Seraphine and Lysandra. It was a system deciding what kind of truth it preferred. Thorn spoke quietly. We are inside a selection engine. Nyx corrected softly. No. A pause. We are inside a truth optimizer. Aurelytha raised her hand. And for the first time,